Yeah, well, well, we are.
Sure, do that right. Okay. Yep, looks like we're good. Cool. Okay. Hey everybody, I'm Olivia Chen. I am the scholarly communication at the University of Tennessee Knoxville. So I work with Amy, if y'all know her. I move around a lot, so I'm hopeful this recording will hear me. So I'm probably gonna try to project because I like to walk and talk as we're thinking about these things today. So I'm going to be talking to you about an institutional repository today. A little different than the resource sharing, although I do come from a background where I did used to help do resource sharing for a small branch library. So I like being back among interlibrary loan people. But today I'm going to talk a little more about how we can share resources through an institutional repository, as well as how we can get people who maybe don't always use those type of resources to kind of get involved and to share their research through green open access. I'm going to go over a couple definitions, make sure we're all on the same page, some background, and just kind of get into that. I think it'll be fun. If y'all have questions, feel free to just stop me during the presentation. I'm cool with that, or you can wait till the end. There should be time. And there's also going to be a little interactive element where I can hear from y'all. It'll be a nice way to break up the presentation so you don't just hear me drone on for like 15 minutes by myself. I don't really want to do that, so I think it'll be cool to hear what you guys have to say too. Seal. There we go. So as I mentioned, this is kind of our agenda for the day. Mostly going to be talking about the institutional repository, a little bit of background, working with these underrepresented groups to use the repository, and some things that I've learned, as well as some takeaways for you all if you're trying to kind of reach an underrepresented group with your resource sharing through a different way. So before we get any further, I want to share a little about the background of where am I at, who are these people we're working with, and what's going on there. So as I mentioned, I'm at the University of Tennessee Knoxville. It's an R1, a flagship institution in Tennessee. It's also a public land grant institution, which is really important to the mission. The University of Tennessee Knoxville is really focused on making sure that things are going great for Tennesseans specifically, and making sure they have access to local resources, to research. There's an extension program where there are different places located all throughout the state where people could go and learn for free about all these different educational resources and things that we have for them. And so a big part of that mission, there's a little quote here from our strategic vision, and that's to ensure that the programs we offer are accessible to communities across Tennessee and beyond. So we want to make sure that Tennesseans are having their lives improved by the University of Tennessee Knoxville's research and their teaching and their presence. But we also want to reach people outside of Tennessee. We want to have a global impact on the research in the world. And so open access is definitely a way that we do that. And I'll touch a little more on that in a moment. Some other things about us, and these numbers are now slightly outdated because I don't know if y'all saw in the news, but UTK actually just had a giant enrollment increase. So they're a little outdated now, but these were from when I first did some research for the presentation. At the time, there were around 28,883 undergrad students and 7,421 graduate and professional students. Now, I think the numbers are getting closer to like 38,000-ish or maybe a little more. So yeah, there's tons of people all studying all kinds of different programs, learning different things. So I work with a lot of faculty, staff, and students from all different backgrounds. And as a scholarly communication librarian, my main focuses are to help people get their works published, get their research out there in different ways, whether that's through something like open access publishing or through putting their work in our repository. I also help people with copyright questions. And that's where I think a lot of my job and interlibrary loan and resource sharing jobs overlap, because we all are thinking about what does copyright allow us to do? What kind of licenses are out there? How can we share either research we've done or that others have done and really just impact our communities? So yeah, so that's a little about where I'm at and what we're doing over there. So I've been talking about open access a lot, but I wanted to kind of touch more on the specific type of open access that I'm going to be talking about today. So if y'all are familiar with green open access, that is the process where people can self-archive their research. It's different than gold open access, where people can go to a journal and have their work published where anybody can see it online with that journal. Green open access is more for people who are going to go online and they have some sort of repository where they can put their work. And that could be a digital repository, like that has different subjects in it. It could be something like an institutional repository that I'm going to talk about today, where a university hosts it, and it houses the work of that particular university's researchers. But either way, an open repository uses the concept of green open access to make sure that everybody can view, download, and share what is in that repository. So it's open to anybody that has internet access, which is great. And something I really like specifically about our repository is that it really does support the university's strategic vision, as I mentioned earlier. That it's really easy for me to kind of sell people on the repository because it fits in so perfectly with what the university is trying to do. And UTK has been pretty supportive of just open access in general because of that mission to try to get that work out there to Tennesseans and beyond. Of course, the rest of the Southeast is very important too, so we want to get our research out to y'all as well. So this is where I want to hear a little bit from you guys. I was wondering who here has personally used an institutional repository. And if you haven't, oh, yeah, I love that. And if you haven't, that's okay too. I also want to know if you have not. So if y'all are able to or want to, you don't have to, it's optional, but you can take out your phones and use the camera app to scan the QR code there on the screen. And it should take you to a little question where you can type in your answer. And it is anonymous, but you can also tell me if you said something and if you want to talk about it, that's fine too. I do a lot of instruction with students and they 100% respond better to anonymous type things like this, but I realize here we might want to actually like say our answers aloud. There's also a link if you'd rather use that. If you go to slido.com and you type in these numbers here, 1506-727, you can do the same thing. And I'm gonna hopefully try to go to see the answers, but let's see if it'll let me do that. I think it will. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Let's find out. So it's not shown on the screen.
Sharing.
I gotcha. Do you want me to like?
I can read through some of the answers that you're getting.
No, you're fine. I'll just read them. So y'all can't see the screen, but that's okay. So some of the answers we've got are yes. Who knew? Somebody said personally as a faculty researcher. Someone said they've not used one before, but they're interested in learning about it. No, and a sad face emoji, which I appreciate. And then also, yep. Let's see who else said something. And then another no. So it looks like we have a good mixture of like people that have used them, people that haven't. Okay, I still got some more people typing, so let's see. And thank y'all for participating, even though you can't see all the answers right now. I'm sure that they're really great. Amy, I was gonna show like a website though later. Do you think we need to like kind of switch how we're doing this?
Do that, yeah.
Yeah, let me see if maybe we can do that. Because I can go to the cloud thingy I have it on if you'd rather me do that, or I'm not sure. Or if there's a way to share like
Stopping the sharing. Yeah, we can. Okay, not that. This.
Sorry, I should have told you that earlier that I was gonna do that. I just felt important for some reason.
I apologize.
No, you're good. Okay.
Should still be sharing your PowerPoint. Or you're trying to get to this page.
Yeah. I'm trying to get it to where it'll show the PowerPoint, and then when I click links, that it'll go to the links online. Yeah, that's weird. It's like it's on two different screens.
Oh, there it went. Oh, no.
I mean, I could try to switch back and forth between them. Maybe we have to stop that one. But now I just have no idea.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. That's long. No,
There we go.
you're okay. Well, now it's
Is
on
it
the
sharing the
screen.
screen now? Okay.
Yeah. So maybe we can fix that.
This is Richard. I was-
So maybe if we just pull up the other things it'll show. Yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay, cool.
So I'll just pull up the website and then people can see
Okay.
that. No, you're fine. I'll find where I was. I think it's still there. Yeah, okay, great. Now I can see it. And we're still.
Sorry, thank you.
No, you're okay. Thank you.
Right.
Sorry for the technical difficulties, but I think we got it worked out. What the conference about some technical difficulties, you know. But now you can see like your actual answers, so yay. So looks like we got a few more. So somebody uploaded some of their publications, conference presentations. Academic libraries are interested in a shared digital repository. I like that, especially when we've been talking a lot about consortia. And then these are some of the other answers that I read aloud. So thank y'all for participating. Did anybody want to share any more about how you've used institutional repository before I go on? Totally okay. If not, just open it up in case somebody had something burning they wanted to say. All right, cool. I'll continue on then. So thank y'all for jumping into that. Let me go here and just click through. Just go through real quick. Perfect. So, as mentioned earlier, the University of Tennessee Knoxville does have an institutional repository where we have places where researchers can upload their documents. They used to be able to upload their data sets, not so much now because our repository is a little bit limited in what it can do. But we are actually going to hopefully move to a new platform soon where hopefully more things can be added. But yes, currently it also has theses and dissertations. You can put posters, reports, conference proceedings, working papers in there, white papers. And this is students, faculty, and staff who can upload things to it. And our institutional repository is known as TRACE, which stands for the Tennessee Research and Creative Exchange. And I will briefly try to show you that. Hopefully it will do it. Let me just. We are. Let me, I think it's something about like the display settings of this. Let me just like stop that. Okay, I'll just do that. There it is. Okay. So this is Trace, our institutional repository. As I mentioned, you can see different types of work that's in there. And I'm going to go ahead and show you all some other things that were going to be on my slides, but let's just stay here where we can see this because we want to do that right now. So down here, we actually have a discipline wheel. And if any of y'all were in the other digital repository presentation the other day, this might look a little familiar to you. So our repository is currently hosted by bPress with Digital Commons. As I mentioned, we are actually in the process of moving to potentially a new platform, but currently this is where we're at. There are some good things about this platform, and that is that we can have this little discipline wheel here that shows all different types of the disciplines and subject matters that are represented. And I'm going to go to that. There it is. And this is really fun, especially for me personally, because you could just like look and just see like, oh, like what's going on, and you can just find all kinds of information. So for example, like I just kind of moused over the education area, and it says there's 2,629 works in education with 57 disciplines represented. So you can see it says there's over 1,119 disciplines with this. And so if you just kind of mouse over it and click and things, you can see all the different works in that area. And that's a special thing about a lot of institutional repositories is that it's just a huge conglomeration of all sorts of research and knowledge. And so as long as it basically came from somebody that was working at our university or working with the university, it can go in here and people can access it. And then we also have some fun things like the paper of the day that you can click on that changes each day. You can see the top 10 downloads of all time, which I always like to kind of look at and see out of curiosity, like what's going on. And then finally, we also have this little map, which again, some of the folks yesterday who talked about repositories touched really well on this. But the fun thing is that it will drop pins to where people are reading and downloading the work in the repository, which is really cool. And you can see it's all around the world. So again, it's so easy to really promote this repository at UTK because it matches with what people are wanting to do about getting their research out there to everybody and with the university's mission. So there's really a lot of great things about using it and putting your work into it. However, I will say it can be confusing about how do you actually upload things? This is something that I get people asking me about all the time, and there's nothing wrong with that because it is genuinely kind of confusing. I do not have control over how this website works. Honestly, nor should I. I'm a lot more of a outreach people person and less of the behind the scenes technical person, and that matches with what my job is. We have a different person who does a lot of the technical side of this. But all that being said, even they cannot fully control how you search things in here. You know, how can you get to the right collection? That's another huge thing, is that we have all these different collections, and I can kind of click to show. There's a lot of different areas where you can go and look. So we've got things like centers and institutes, data, the Smart Policy Network, all different types of university libraries. Let's click on that one because that's a personal favorite. So you can see all types of different things that people have done, and it's great from all different years, all different people. But then it's like, when you go to submit, how do you make sure you get into the right collection? That is something we have a lot of people struggle with, because you can click submit your work here, but are you in the correct collection when you're doing that? We have a lot of people that are required to submit their theses and dissertations through the graduate school to Trace. And they do a great job of doing that every year. But we always get people who accidentally somehow upload their thesis into the wrong place. It doesn't go into the proper theses and dissertations area. So that's something that has been a major thing to think about for us as we try to help patrons with this and encourage the use. And something else that we've really been thinking about is, who are our underrepresented users who use this repository, who are uploading things, but maybe they've been forgotten about. Maybe they haven't had as much help with it as they've needed, or as much like promotion behind their work. So I'm going to attempt to hopefully go back to my PowerPoint now, and let's make sure it'll work. So I'm going to pop over here. Let me see if it'll let me do this. Correct. Yay. Okay, cool. So I touched on this a little bit as I was scrolling through the actual repository itself, but you know, why should people use it? Well, it's a great way to get your research out there. It supports the university's mission, but also it can really help you personally if you're a researcher. Some people were mentioning before about there's a lot of people that have like tenure requirements, you know, if you're a faculty member, or if like you're a student, you know, maybe you're working on something with other students or a faculty member, and you want to get your work out there, if you're looking at graduate school and things like that. And so putting your work onto a repository like Trace allows, again, anybody to be able to see it. You can share the link to your work, and it's not going to be hidden behind a paywall. People can just click and view it immediately. They can download it. And Trace gives you all these different citation numbers, view numbers, and download numbers, which a lot of those, the viewing and downloading, are part of what we call alt metrics or alternative metrics. So there are traditional metrics you can get if you publish your work with a journal, but if you're putting your work onto a repository like this, you can actually get those alternative ones and see who's actually been viewing my work, who's been downloading it, where has it been shared, where has it been cited, and Trace is automatically indexed by Google Scholar. So it's a great way for people to kind of push their work out there, have a permanent link to it, have a DOI. That's something else that we're able to assign people when they put their work in Trace. And so even something that's like maybe a conference poster you did and you wanted to upload a PDF of it, that could get its own DOI and be easily shared to anybody that's online. So there's a lot of really benefits for the authors who are submitting their work. And we also allow them to retain the copyright to their work as well. So whenever they upload their work to the repository, they have to confirm that they already have the copyright to it first, because you definitely don't want to put something in Trace that you're not allowed to do. But thankfully, a lot of academic journals do allow you to put your work into a repository after you've published with them. A lot of time they just want that first rights of being able to link back to where you've published with the journal. But they're totally fine most of the time with you putting your work in a repository if you have the copyright to it. And so people can do that. And then at Trace, we don't try to take that copyright from anybody else. Once they upload their work there, they still have the copyright to it. And so if anybody wants to use their work in any way and they want to ask permission, they would actually go directly to that author and ask permission. It does not become the property of the university or the university libraries. So that way they can still do other things with the work that they upload if they want, since they retain that copyright. So there's definitely a lot of advantages to doing this, even if it can be a little confusing, as we mentioned. So I mentioned earlier too, we're trying to think more about who is using Trace and how can we meet them where they're at. So of course there are some traditional users of Trace, and these folks are people who really have to be getting their research out there, and so it makes perfect sense why they're using Trace maybe more than others. We have faculty members who are really wanting others to view, download, and cite their work. It's very important, especially for their tenure and promotion processes, to show that they're really having an impact in their field. So using Trace for them is kind of like I would hope, a no-brainer for a lot of people, as long as they're okay with it being open access. And then of course our graduate and professional students also use Trace. As I mentioned earlier, the graduate students are required by the UTK Graduate School to upload their theses and dissertations to Trace. So they have a whole setup for that, and they're really great users of that. Give me one second. But then we also have underrepresented users, people who we may not always think about, who still have things that they want to share with the world. That's just as relevant as somebody else's research or something that they're required to upload in Trace. So we have staff people who use Trace as well. They might be uploading like minutes from a department meeting. They might have their own personal projects they want to share with everybody. And so they're using it. Sorry. Yeah. I think I'm allergic to dust, and I'm wondering if it's like there's like dust floating or something. I don't know. But anyway, hopefully we'll be all right. And then there's also undergraduate students who use Trace, and they're the ones I'm going to be really focusing on here in a moment. And there are some people that I didn't necessarily think about as our users. Not that I thought they couldn't do it. I'm happy to have anybody upload anything to Trace that's relevant to it. But there are some particular undergraduate students who do capstones, and so there is actually a history of them uploading their work to Trace. And so I'm going to be talking a little bit more about how I worked with them, just to help them better understand what they're doing when they upload to Trace, what that means for them in their work, as well as just how do we help people like that who they don't have the graduate school helping them through the way. They need help from librarians, they need help from their faculty and their honors coaches. And so we don't want to overlook them. And so I'm going to talk a little about a specific group. So the Chancellor's Honors Program is a specific group of honor students at UTK. And it's a really interesting program. It's the largest interdisciplinary honors program, and it's an 18 credit hour minor. So these honor students, they start off with a first year seminar, and then they continue to take honors classes throughout the rest of their time at UTK. And then it culminates in a capstone, and it can either be an honors capstone or a department approved capstone equivalent. And these capstones could be things like a traditional research paper, it could be a poster, it could be all types of different things. And so it's really cool. There's a lot of different topics they cover. It's really, since it's interdisciplinary, you could have something from like nursing to engineering to art. And so they really just cover a wide range of research and experiences in this program as they work together. And so how did I kind of realized though that these folks need some help and that they're underrepresented users of our repository. Well, I started at UTK in March, so I'm still fairly new. I've only been there about 7 months, 8 months. I've got to remember the math. So when I first got there, I knew that Trace was really important to the university and to the libraries, and that we wanted people to be able to use it. We wanted people to be able to use it and just enjoy it. Sorry. So the bright side is that an honors coach actually found me. So even though I was really new and trying to get to know other people and find them, an honors coach reached out to me for help because his students needed to upload capstones to Trace and they didn't know how, which is understandable because it is confusing. I went to upload something to Trace myself and had to make sure I was doing all the correct steps and that I wasn't wandering off to the wrong collection. And so they needed that extra help. And so thankfully, I'm not even sure how he found me, honestly, but he found me and was like, can you come and talk to my students? And so I was able to provide some instruction to them via Zoom. I did an active learning opportunity with them with Slido, kind of like how I just did with y'all. And I told some of y'all, I think that a lot of times students are scared to speak up in class, especially if it's about something they've never heard of or didn't know much about. And talking about an institutional repository, I mean, I say that term all the time, but to students, it's like, what is that? Like, what are you even talking about? Like, why do you say it so fast? I feel like I should slow down on it, like what even is that? And like, they're genius students, but that's just not something they deal with on a daily basis. And so I was able to just kind of slow down a little bit and do some interactions with them. Sorry. Do some interactions with them and just allow them to answer those questions anonymously. I got to learn more about the different things that they were presenting on and doing for their capstones. And then I was able to walk them through the steps for deposit. So with that Zoom session, I was able to just show them online through sharing my screen. Here's exactly how you go to the collection and submit your work. This is the right place for you to go. Do not go here, do not go there. And this is how you can do all of that. And it was specifically tailored to their program. And then I also offered time for questions throughout. If they wanted to speak up, they could, and if they didn't, that was okay. I left my contact info for them. And through that session, they were able to see exactly what they needed to do step by step to make sure that their capstone projects ended up in the right place, and that their capstones could be seen by everybody with internet access. We're going to take a look at some more of the documentation that was done for that. So this is a flyer that I made for them. Again, it was just step by step. Here's exactly where to go. Here's what to do. Here's how you log in and submit your work. They also have to sign a submission agreement when they submit their work. And so I went over a little about what that means, why we do that. They can learn a little about copyright on the side, which is always fun. And then also I worked on making a new condensed scholarly communications LibGuide. This was important because when I came to UTK, there was a lot of great LibGuides, but that was the key word, is a lot. There were so many and they were great, but it could be confusing as well. It was just kind of information overload with some of the guides. They all linked to each other and it was just pages and pages of information, which again was all great, but it needed to be condensed and it needed to be more user-friendly and stop using so many library jargony terms. It was confusing for people. So I just said, let's just make a new guide that's like short, sweet. It links to those other ones just in case you want the in-depth information, but this guide is able to really just show people the nitty-gritty of it, and again, walks people through step by step what to do. And so that guide was helpful, and it's something I can share with people now if they have questions about our different repositories or anything related to scholarly communications in general. I also made a LibWizard tutorial for the Trace best practices. And let's see, how much time do I have? I'm thinking I'm okay. I was like, I'm gonna probably try to show it, but you know what? Let's just move on. I'm scared of this thing, y'all. I'm scared. If not time at the end, I'll show it real quick. Let's just continue. So the tutorial, as y'all can imagine, you just click through it. It's just step by step the same thing that I've been talking about. But I have a history before I came to work at UTK, I did a lot of outreach at my former academic libraries. And something about outreach, especially if anybody here does like social media marketing for your library, something that I've learned a lot is that people really need the same information repeated several times or it will not stick. It's not because people don't understand or anything, but everybody is so busy. You're constantly flying through a ton of information all the time. It's easy to forget, especially things like that are very detail oriented, like a step-by-step process of how to do something that's technological that you never deal with on a daily basis, but you desperately need to do it for your capstone. And so there's a lot of stress involved with that too. I don't know how many of y'all have had to like submit like your thesis or like a major document or something, but it can be stressful, especially if you're not familiar with the program. So I basically just put these steps everywhere you can think of. We got a flyer, we have the tutorial, we have the guide. I went and did instruction for these students personally. And so I'm like, hopefully, with all these different things out there and being delivered in different mediums, we can get these students and their capstones to a good place. So let's look at what happened. What happened is that it was successful. Thank goodness. After all that, it was like I waited for anybody during the semester to reach out because I had put my email out there a million times and I was like, I will help you, I will help you, I will help you. We have a general trace email people can contact, and it goes to me and some of my colleagues who are great. And I'm like, we'll all help you. Like, just please let me know. Nobody contacted me. Y'all, I was terrified. I'm like, I just did all this instruction. I just put out all these resources and linked to them and sent them to them. And I'm like, I don't know if they did it. I don't know if it happened. And I don't get reports about what goes on Trace myself. So I never really knew if it happened or not. So when the semester was over, I was like, I'm gonna go look and see, like, did these get uploaded? Is everybody okay? Like, do I need to reach back out? And 28 of their projects were successfully uploaded to Trace. So that was wonderful. And then 38 student authors were represented with that. And then the real kicker, and this was really surprising to me, this whole time I'm thinking of this as an underrepresented group of folks who do need and deserve to get their research out there just like everybody else. But maybe are not the people you think of immediately when you're like, oh, this research is here. But it turns out that their program page, like their publication on Trace, was the third most popular publication in the whole institutional repository with 18,587 downloads. That's great. These honor students are getting their work downloaded, cited, shared, viewed by all kinds of different people all over the world. They can really see like how much impact they've had. Their honors program was not for naught. I mean, it wasn't anyway, because I'm sure they learned amazing things, but now they can really share that with others, and really just apply what they learned. So they did a great job. Now, do I think this number is because of me? No, it's not. This program has already been a long established program. Their work has been in Trace for years, which is great. But I do think that what I helped do for them and what my coworkers have helped them do is just make them feel more welcome and comfortable using Trace. And just feel more comfortable sharing their research through Green Open Access, learning more about what that process looks like, taking control of their copyright, because when they sign that submission agreement, they have to think about their rights and like who owns what. And so all of this is preparing them for if they want to go to grad school, if they want to be a faculty member, or if they just want to continue doing research in some way. These are all things they have to think about as they continue to publish and disseminate their research. So they really learned a lot through this experience, as well as they can feel really good because, again, they're the third most popular publication in the whole thing. Like, that's amazing. They're behind the theses and dissertations. So those are very popular, and there's nothing wrong with that. They deserve that credit too. So I will try to show an example capstone, and I'm just gonna go away from there. Let's see if this will work. Yay! So this is what their little area looks like, their special collection of Chancellor's Honors Program. They were even featured in Undergraduate Research Commons. Yay for them. I'm bragging on them like these are my own personal students. They're not, but it just seems cool. Okay. So this was one that was uploaded in May. And it's about a Utendo sleeve, which is a tendon to muscle fixation device. So this student was an engineering student, I think a biomedical engineering student, I believe. And they made this wonderful poster that explains about this device that can be used for people. They had some key takeaways that it could be used in surgical settings to help people. It's all about just kind of like putting something together with the sleeve, and like using sutures. So it was really cool. I learned a lot about it just from this poster. This is not something I think about in my daily life. I'm over here worried about copyright. And these folks are like building something that can help people in surgery and help people with their tendon to muscle fixation device needs. So this is just a great example though of what that can look like. When they upload to Trace2, they get this little guy here that's hard to see just from the nature of this being a poster, but they do get a little cover page that kind of explains like who they are, how to cite it, all of that good stuff. And that automatically happens when they upload there. So yeah, this is just one example of some of the amazing things that they can do. And yeah, I mean, they did a great job. And you can see here too, this one in particular has 16 downloads. And there's some other metrics that if you gloss over, sometimes you can see. So I done 13 downloads, it says, and then 5 abstract views. I'm not sure why those two numbers are a little different with the downloads, but those are some ways that you can get the metrics. So the student themselves can go and see who's been using their work and how many times. So I'm gonna try to go back to. Right, okay. So what are the next steps? Where are we going next with all this? Well, my department's been really working hard on trying to do more outreach on our campus, make people more aware of our services and how we can help them with things like uploading to Trace, sharing their research, copyright, all of those good things that people need help with as they put their research out there. So we sent out an internal survey to other library folks. UTK employs a lot of different librarians and faculty, staff, students. And so we were looking at all the different people in the libraries to see, what do you guys think about Trace? Do you understand it? Does it make sense to you? What about our other services we offer in this area? And then also, how are your patrons doing? We have a lot of subject librarians that we like to work closely with, and they're the ones who know best about what their faculty and students are up to at any given time. So we wanted to really honor that and build that relationship with them and see, how are they doing? And we learned from that most people in the libraries understand Trace, or at the very least they know it exists and they feel decent about that. But a lot of people have said that their faculty, staff, or students that they deal with do not know what it is, have never heard of it, don't use it, and are confused. And that's understandable because, again, this is just not something that comes up in daily conversation a lot of the time. Most people are not thinking about institutional repositories every day when they wake up. Some of us are, because it's our job, but not everybody thinks that. And so that's something that we wanted to, again, just share more with others. And so we're looking at different ways to do that. Some of the ways we're working on that are by doing things like updating our existing department website to make sure it makes sense, make sure it's more user-friendly. We've also been working on providing a list of all of our services to our community to make sure that first and foremost, our other librarians understand what we have for their patrons, and then they are able to then talk to those people that they have personal relationships with and really just convey what's going on. That's been a really helpful approach. When I first came to UTK, before that, I had worked at a branch library on a branch campus, which was great, but it really just mostly dealt with about 1,000 people at any given time. And UTK, as y'all saw from the numbers, it's more like almost 38,000 students and then even more faculty and staff to be added to that number. And I was like, how on earth am I gonna reach out to all these people? Like, there's so many. I can't possibly know all of them the way that I knew people at my former library, where there was only maybe like 20 to 30 faculty I was talking with on a daily basis. And so really partnering with those subject librarians to get the word out to their groups has been really helpful. I was also invited to go speak at some of their department meetings. One of our librarians goes and she talks to her faculty at their department meetings, and she invited me to come along and just spread the word and let them know what we're doing for them and different ways about how they can publish their work through our open access funding and through also like free things like Trace where they can upload their work too. And so those relationships have been really important as we've been trying to just find other ways we can resource share together. And then also want to just continue to build on those relationships with people who were maybe underrepresented groups, folks that were not always at the top of our mind that are using our services, but they still use it and they still need help. And they still need those services just like everyone else. And just making sure we can identify them and be there for them and their needs is really important. So the key takeaways from this are a few little things here. And if you don't remember anything else, I'm hopeful that these will just kind of go out there and help. So one of those things is that green open access is convenient for researchers. It's a great way to share their work with others. It's free for them. It's free for people to view and download and share. It gives you great alt metrics. You know, no, it's not publishing in the top journal in your field. Like putting something in an institutional repository is not the same as that, but it is getting your work out there to the people who need it. And to me, that's really important. And then also underrepresented groups should be considered when we're doing our outreach, instructions, and communications at all libraries. We just want to make sure that we're not leaving people out and that we are meeting people where they're at and helping them as best we can. And then also the process of identifying and addressing user needs is constant and ongoing. And it should be because things change. We were just talking about a little earlier, some of us in the room, about like libraries kind of jumping on the bandwagon of things and being like, ooh, AI, you know, and like all these different topics that come up. But our users' needs also change too, because you know, some users are really technologically savvy and advanced and they want the newest, like most helpful thing. Some people are not. Some people want to do things the way they've always done them. And then something like Trace is like just too overwhelming for them. And so we really just need to be assessing what these needs are and figuring out how we can help them and be able to just meet our common goals together. Especially with, again, considering the university mission to just be able to put our work out there for people in Tennessee and beyond. So a few questions to consider that I've thought about from all this experience. Things like, are undergraduate students the new early career researchers? I am weirdly interested in early career researchers, maybe because I kind of am one. So I'm always like, what are we doing? Like, what about people that are just getting started? So that's something to think about as we continue on. And I was really excited to know that we have undergraduate students at UTK who are doing great research. I'm also wondering how can institutional repositories become more active in promoting and sharing new research. And that's where I just have to say, like, interlibrary loan and resource sharing folks are great at this. Everybody loves interlibrary loan. Like, every institution I've worked at, the faculty report back and surveys that they're just like, interlibrary loan is my favorite thing. I love the interlibrary loan librarians. They help me and they're amazing. And this is what I use every day. And I'm not saying that institutional repositories can get to that level because I don't know, you know, let's be real, interlibrary loan people have that on lock. But I would like for it to get a little closer to that level where people really appreciate them. They use it for their research. They use it to read and learn new things. And so hopefully there are some ways where we can get a little bit better about promoting those types of things for our researchers. So thank you all for having me today. I've really appreciated being here. Again, I'm Olivia Chin, and if y'all have any questions at this time, I'm happy to take them.
Does your repository accept non-document deposits?
So not really, and that's one of its problems. And that's why we are looking at moving to a different platform. But it does best with PDFs. And or if you can make whatever your thing is into a PDF, that's great. But it doesn't do very well with things like videos, music. We have some on there and we can accept it, but it's a little iffy on like what that looks like.
Your size limits.
We do. I'm not sure what they are off the top of my head, but there are some size limits, yes. Like I don't think something like a video that's really long could be uploaded.
3D models are always big.
Yeah, yeah.
You're giving me ideas.
Uh-oh. No,
Well,
that's
I mean,
good.
we already, as we get requests for theses and dissertations that have been published at the University of Tennessee. We get those in resource sharing, and then we let the team know that is slowly going through and digitizing all those theses and adding them to trace, but we let them know, okay, someone requested this, can you digitize it? We then don't have to mail it out, and it's up there for everybody. That's very cool. But now I'm thinking about how often does research at Tennessee get requested from us? And that we could be saying the fact that, hey, somebody requested this research. Have you considered adding it to trace? And now I'm like, can we somehow glean that, like cross-reference it from our Iliad data? And find
Oh, I like
ways to-
that. Do I see a little project?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe everyone put our heads together.
I like that. Yeah, we can totally talk more about that later. We're back at work. I like that. Plus, it would help us kind of like, tack on to the success of our library loan. So
Yeah.
Is it just the university libraries that are doing that sort of like, you said you're doing mostly outreach, but like metadata work, like making sure things are uploaded to the correct collections?
yes, it is. So my department is kind of small. We've got 3 full-time people, and we also have a graduate research assistant and a student worker as well. And our graduate research assistant currently actually does a lot of the actual making sure people uploaded things in the right place. She monitors the general email that we have. And so she'll get those kind of updates of like, whoops, this thing went in the wrong place, and then she'll go and contact the person and try to fix it. We also have a vendor who we work with BPress. We have a consultant with them. So sometimes if something is very wrong with the platform, that is the person we'll go to and talk to. And they've been really helpful at fixing like technical issues and things like that, getting people access to certain places they need to go in the repository. But yes, the 2 of them do a lot of that kind of behind the scenes work, all of the metadata as well. Although that's something we're still working on too, is like, what are the best practices for that metadata? And it's tricky. And the person who does other metadata at our library has definitely expressed like, hey, I don't really know what's going on with this repository, and y'all need some help. And I'm like, I know. So that's definitely something we're also still trying to work on. And I think when we go to the new platform, hopefully we'll get a standards like set for that.
I was gonna ask, do you know what the platform is that you're going to?
I don't. Okay, they started this process before I was hired, so I wasn't on the committee, and I couldn't be brought in afterward. And it's very secretive because it's an RFP.
Weird.
So I have no idea what it is. I have guesses, but my boss can't tell me. So I'm just like, I don't know. I'll be as surprised as everybody else. So I'll have to learn it and then share it and redo all my documentation. So with y'all, I hesitated. I was like, should I even do all this documentation? We're about to move. And I was like, yes, we should, because we need to help these people now. So
Thank you so much for presenting to us today, Olivia. This is great.
thank you. I really appreciate it.
There is not another session in